Exercise 9. In this exercise, we're going to look at functionality inside SolidWorks that has to do with top-down assembly modeling. Now in exercise 5, a few weeks back, we actually worked on bottom-up assembly modeling. The difference between the two is basically bottom-up assembly modeling is building parts outside of the SolidWorks assembly and then starting an assembly and dropping them in and adding mates and so on. Whereas top-down assembly modeling is actually a much faster, more efficient way, but it's a bit more complex to learn initially. So that's why we don't get to it till about now. What we're going to do is we're going to build the parts inside the assembly, and you'll find out once we actually construct them based off of each other, they have links established, and if you change, like in the case of this pencil sharpener that you see here, that has a front bezel and then it has the rear transparent bezel. Basically, you're going to find if you change one of the dimensions on, like in this case, the width from 2 inches to 3 inches, both parts will update. And that's the beauty of this functionality. So if you have the ability to use it, it's definitely much faster than any other method inside SolidWorks to construct an assembly. But at the same time, just remember it is a bit complex. So to begin, we're going to go ahead and start a new assembly. Okay, so now that we have the assembly file open, let's go ahead and, in this case, it gives us an option to begin the assembly. For this lesson, we're not going to use any of these options that are in here, so I'm just going to hit the little red X at the top left corner. I first want to save this assembly, so I'm going to go to the little disk and hit save. And I'm going to save this one on my desktop, and I'm going to call this the E9 for exercise 9. Hit save. And also make sure that it's set up for the proper units. So you go to the tools options and go to document properties, make sure it's set up for ANSI, and the units should be set up for the length units of 0.123, 3 decimal places. Okay, and we begin by selecting the Insert Component button here. The little arrow below it, we could click on that. We'll see there's different options here. We have Insert Component, New Part, New Assembly, Copy with Mates. In this case, Insert Component would be bottom-up assembly modeling. That's not what we want. We actually want New Part, which is top-down assembly modeling. So let's go ahead and select that. And you'll see a little check mark to the right of the pointer on SolidWorks. Basically what this is a little reminder that you have to select a plane or a face. It has to be a flat face of a model, or it could be one of the planes that are listed on the feature tree. And when you do that, it will open up a new sketch in your new part that you've just created here, and it will match the front plane of your new part to whatever surface or plane that you select. So that's how it orients it. In this case, we're going to select the front plane of the assembly in the feature tree. And by doing that, now we actually match up both the front plane of the assembly with the front plane of my part. Now before I go any further, I actually want to save this part as something that I could recognize. Right now it has a temporary name. You could look in the feature tree here. It's Part 1 E9. So we want to go to File, Save As, and you'll get this Choose Document. We want the Part 1 E9. Okay, so basically what we're seeing here with the Resolve Ambiguity dialog box is that it's asking us or prompting us either to save the part file or the assembly. In this case, we just want to save the part file, so we just hit OK. And it gives us a little message. Just ignore that for right now. We'll go into that later time. You can just hit OK. And at this point, you could go ahead and save it. And I'm going to call it the E9 front. And we hit save. And now we could continue on. Now if we take a look at the feature tree, you'll see that our part that we just renamed and that we're actually working on is in blue. At least the text is. If we open it up by hitting the little plus symbol to the left of it, we could actually see it has its own front, top, and right planes, has its own origin, and it has a sketch that's currently active. And we know that because it says at the bottom right of the screen that we're editing the sketch, and we could see the red origin in the center. When the red origin is on, that's an indication that you are editing the sketch. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to use a new rectangle tool today. If we go to the corner rectangle and hit the little arrow to the right of it, we'll find center rectangle. This gives you a centered rectangle when you draw it. So we could go ahead and click on that origin, drag it out, and click again. And now we could go ahead and add some smart dimensions to it. And this is going to be a 2 by 2 square. All right, now that we have it fully defined, we could go ahead and extrude it. So we go to Features, Extrude Boss, and if we take a look at our drawing that is on this exercise, we could see what this is comprised of is basically a rectangle or a square extruded 1 inch deep, and then it has a boss on the front which is 1.25 in diameter, and that's extruded a 1/2 inch, and then there's a lip that's a 1/4 of an inch high off of that edge. So this part is just going to be 1 inch thick. So we just type in 1 inch and hit enter, or the green check mark to apply it. The next thing we want to do is we'll zoom up a little bit and we'll select the front face and click on our sketch tool to start our sketch. Now we can take our circle tool, and because we started with a center rectangle tool, you could see that our origin is in the center, so it's very easy to lock into with our circle. Drag it out, go to Smart Dimension, and dimension it at 1.25. And now we could go to Features and extrude that. And that's going to get extruded, if we look at our sheet here, a 1/2 inch. And apply that. Now there's a hole that goes in the center, and the hole is a 1/2 inch diameter. So we're going to select the front face of the boss, go to the sketch tool, select the circle again, and at the center draw out a circle. We'll go to Smart Dimension and dimension that at 0.5. And we could go to Features now and Extruded Cut. And for this it goes through all, so select through all and hit the green check to apply. Now we just have to add the fillets. So let's go to the fillet tool. Now the fillets, according to the drawing, there's a large one right here, and that's a radius of 0.25, and then the typical fillets are 0.125. So proceed to go ahead and we'll put the large fillet in first and select this edge and apply. Now go back to fillet and type in 0.125 and proceed to select this front face. You could select this front face as well, and then the 4 edges. You may have to rotate the part to get the bottom one in. Be careful not to select the backside face or any of the edges. Those are to remain sharp because we're going to shell it in just a minute. Actually, before we shell it, we're going to go ahead and we're going to, no, actually at this point we're going to shell it. So to shell it, after you apply the fillet, select the back face and go to the shell command up at the top here under Features. And it's going to be 100 thousandths wall thickness, so 0.1 is the default. Hit the green check mark to apply. With that face selected, you can see it opens the face and everything else gets shelled out. The next step is to put the lip on, which is a 1/4 inch by 50 thousandths thick, and it's an inside lip to the interior of this edge. So what we can do for that is we could select this face and start our sketch. Go to Offset Entities up at the top. Offset it at 0.05 and hit the reverse button here right below the 0.05. Hit it a couple times until you see the yellow preview inside the actual solid body, like it appears here on the screen. And then hit the apply button. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make a nested edge so we could get just this thickness here. This is one way to do it out of many. And what we're going to do, I'm going to show you a couple of tricks here. To grab the inside edges and to convert them so we have sketch geometry off of them, you could right click on one of the edges on the inside and you'll find two options near the top here. One is select tangency or select loop. Select tangency will work in this case. It will grab all the edges on the inside because there are fillets on each corner that are tangent. So we could go ahead and select that, and you can see it will select all the inside edges for us, which now we could hit the Convert Entities button. But just to show you one other method, you could right click, and maybe sometimes you don't have the luxury of having everything tangent. You have the option to select loop. By selecting select loop, you'll see that again it grabbed all the edges on that inside edge, but there's a little arrowhead. The arrowhead allows you, by clicking on it, to flip which edges you want off of the edge that you selected, or which face to follow. In this case, I'm going to flip it again so it follows this. And I'm going to hit the green check mark to apply. Actually, I did that a little too quick. Let's just do it one more time. Right click, select loop, or select tangency. I'll do select tangency. And we'll hit Convert Entities. And we're ready. Now we could go ahead and extrude that. So we go to Features, Extrude Boss, 0.25, hit Enter, and the green check mark to apply. And now we're done with our lip. We're actually done with the whole part here for right now. Okay. Now, when you're finished with the part, and you no longer want to work on it, there is an option to turn it on or off, and it's up at the top left-hand corner here. It's called Edit Component. This is the key to top-down assembly modeling. If there's one thing that you keep your eye on, in this case we'll call it the ball, it's Edit Component. This is, you're going to be toggling this back and forth to work on different parts. It's either on or off, and depending upon the part you selected, you are either turning that part on to be edited or you're turning it off. And when you're not editing a part, you are editing an assembly. So in this case, we want to go back to editing the assembly because we need to add a new part, which is the E9 rear, the reservoir that's going to attach to the back side of this. And we can't build a part, a new part, inside of a part that's being edited. So we have to go to Edit Assembly. And the way to do that is just click on this little blue icon up here, Edit Component. And now at the bottom we can see we are editing the assembly. Now let's proceed with inserting a new part. One thing I might want to do is hit the little minus sign to the left of E9 front just to bring that up so it's not confusing us with any additional information we don't need at this time. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to go back to Insert Component up at the top. At the very bottom of the Insert Component icon you have the arrow again, and we want to select New Part once again. And once again we are prompted with a little green check mark to the right of our pointer. Again, it's indicating to let us know, it's an indication to let us know that we have to select a face or plane or surface to start our sketch on for the new part that we just inserted. So I'm going to again select the front plane. Now if you had to draw on this top face, it might be a good idea you could go ahead and click on that top face, but in fact we need to sketch on this little edge that we see here, which is a little hard to select. I mean, it wouldn't be hard if we zoomed up to it, but that is actually built based off of our front plane. That's how we built it to start. So let's go ahead and just select the front plane of the feature tree once again. And now we see that this part shows up in blue and has a generic name. First things first, let's go ahead and rename it. So we go to File, Save As, and we have here again the same option. We just want the E9 at E9, which is the part file. Again, ignore this, just hit OK. You could hit Don't Ask Me Again if you like. And let's proceed to name this the E9 Rear. Hit Save. And now we could go ahead and take what we need from this model to regenerate the rear. Now rather than resketching all that, which we had to draw little square in the center, dimension it 2 by 2, extrude it, and then add the fillets and things like that. Why don't we just try and take what we can from this model and kill two birds with one stone? What I mean by that is we could actually take the geometry off of this model and have it linked at the same time to this model. So if this model ever changes, someone goes in and changes those 2-inch width or height dimensions, it will update our model. Here's the trick. We select the face that we want to start, that we're going to steal, or in this case the outer edges are what we want to grab off of it, and we could select either offset entities or convert entities. In this case we want to just convert the entities because we want them to be of equal size and parameter of that face that we just selected. So if we hit convert entities, it grabs all the outer faces, and that's typical of convert entities. It grabs the outer faces of whatever surface you select and projects them onto whatever plane you're sketching. We just so happen to be sketching on that plane, which is equal to the front plane that we dropped our part on. So now we could go ahead and just extrude it. It's that easy. Go to Features, Extrude Boss, and if we bring up our drawing, we just scroll down to the next section here, and we could see that this is supposed to be a length of 1 inch, and then we're going to add a 1/2 inch dome where it's tangent to the outer edges. So let's proceed with that. So we'll hit the reverse direction, 1.0, or you could actually just type 1 in, and hit the green check mark to apply. And there it is. Now we could go ahead and select the back face, go to Insert, Features, and find Dome. Dome, D-O-M-E. Select it, put in 0.5, and flip the Continuous Dome option off. Continuous Dome will follow tangency to the surfaces from which it's that you selected. Thus that would make that kind of flat when it starts off and then bow up. In this case, it's following the outside surfaces as tangent. And hit the green check mark to apply. So now we have a nice smooth backside. So if someone puts this in the palm of their hand to sharpen a pencil, it's nice and easy to hold. Okay, now what we can do is we need to work on the inside of that. We have to shell it out. We have to add a couple clips. So I'm actually going to hide the front part here, the E9 front. We could hide it just by clicking on it. And we find this little set of eyeglasses on one of the options. It's Hide Component. Select it. And it disappears. Now we just need to shell this out. The shell is going to be half the wall thickness of the last part. So instead of 0.1, it's going to be 0.05. So select this face to open up. Select the shell command, 0.05. And hit the green check mark to apply. And now it's shelled out. The next part to this is to actually put some little clips on the top and bottom faces, on the interfaces, so that it could actually clip and attach itself, locking in with a snap feature to the front bezel, which we never put any recesses for the clips on there yet, but I'll show you a little trick for that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we have to find a plane that's in the center here somewhere, because if you looked at the drawing, they're centered, they're 1/4 inch wide, and they're, let's see, we'll actually look at it. A radius of 0.025, which is basically a diameter of 0.05. And then we have here, they're 0.125 off of the front edge. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. In this case, I'm going to select the right plane from the feature tree of my part that I'm working on. So make sure it's in blue here. We're in the E9 rear, and I selected the right plane. You can see the right plane intersects right in the center, and that was intended. That's part of our design intent when we started this project. Everything is centered, so it makes things easy on us. We don't have to create a new plane or offset anything. So now that the plane is selected, we could go ahead and go to Sketch and start our sketch on it. And we'll do one more thing. We'll go Normal 2. And we'll go to Wireframe. Now that we're in Wireframe, what you're looking at here, this very top line here is actually the edge for the inside. This second one that shows up below here, that's actually the tangent edge. We don't want to attach to that. Not a good idea. So let's start off. Let's draw our circle. And sometimes you could actually get this to find that edge. In this case, I'm not finding it. So I'm going to draw it out here. I'm going to go ahead and dimension it at 0.05. And now I'm going to hit escape to get out of my dimension tool. And I want to attach it to that inner edge. Because I'm having a little difficulty here, let me try actually going to different method here. Maybe I could grab that. No, not giving it to me. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select the center point of the circle. I'm going to rotate this just a little bit so I could see the under edge. And actually, I'll shade this so you could see this a little bit better. So we're at the top here. And what we want to do is align ourselves from this point to this edge right here. So I'm going to hold Control, and I'm going to select that edge. And we could go ahead and make it coincident with the relationship. You'll find coincident over to the left or on that little quick access bar. And now we could go back to normal 2. Okay, and if we orient ourselves either to the right view or normal 2, that works. And then we'll go ahead and move this over and add our next dimension from the center point to this front edge. And that's going to be 0.125. All right, the next step in this process is to extrude it. It's going to be evenly distributed on both sides of the right plane. So we go to Features, Extrude Boss, and instead of blind, we'll select mid-plane. Put in 0.25 below there, and hit the Apply button. And it makes our part for us, or I should say our feature, clip feature. Now what we need to do is get it on the bottom. And because everything is symmetric here, because we built it on the origin centered, it makes it very easy for us. We can actually select our top plane from the feature tree, go to Mirror, and now the feature to mirror, we'll just grab it. We'll just select it. You can see it previews it for us down below, and we hit the green check mark to apply. And so now we have both clips set up on top and the bottom. And this is a good time to save. And just hit OK. Now we're finished with editing this component. So again, remember, keep your eye on the ball, which is the Edit Component tool up here at the top left. We have to turn it off now, because right now it says we're editing a part. We want to go to editing the assembly because we're finished. Turn it off. The next step is to bring back our E9 front. The E9 front is just hidden. We just select it from the feature tree with the left mouse button, and you can see a little set of eyeglasses on a yellow block. Show components is what we want, and it reappears. Now what we'll do actually with the rear, because it's a transparent block, just select it and find the change transparency. It's like a ghosted image of the same block as hide and show. And now we can see it in its transparent view. Okay, now you can see over here that we have a little rectangle. What that is an interference taking place. And if we wanted to, we could actually test for an interference under evaluation. And there's several options here for doing this. And one of them is interference detection. We could select that, and we could hit calculate, and it will show us in red the interferences. And we see over the left here, we could click on them and see where they are. And it gives us the what they look like. So we know there's interferences. So we have to get rid of those. We have to make little cutouts. Now normally on a metal part, I wouldn't suggest doing what I'm about to show you. On plastic, we could probably get away with it. Even then, you probably might want to have a little more tolerance built into this, so it's not so tight. But what we're going to do is we're going to do what they call Boolean Subtraction, what SolidWorks calls a cavity function. And it's going to remove the material intersection of one of the parts. And we get to choose which one we want to have removed. So what you'll find that you first have to edit the part that you want to have cut or material removed from. So that would be the E9 front. So we'll select that and we'll find Edit Part. Same little blue icon. Remember over here on the Assembly toolbar, if you click over here, you see it there. It's called Edit Component, Edit Part. They're the exact same thing. Click on that so we know we're editing the E9 front. The next step is to go to Insert, Molds, because this is under the mold functionality built inside SolidWorks. And we use Cavity. Select Cavity. Now under Cavity, we have the Design Component. Basically, the Design Component is the part you want to subtract away from your part, the part that you're working on. So that's the rear. So let's just select the transparent rear part. You can see it's highlighted. Hit the green check mark to apply, and bingo. Now if we zoom up, you could actually see the little cuts on both sides. It removed the intersecting material between the two parts. As a matter of fact, if we now we want to get out of editing this part, again, keep your eye on the ball, turn off Edit Component. Let's hide the rear part by selecting it and finding Hide Component. And sure enough, we can see the little marks. To bring it back, let's go ahead and click on it in the feature tree and turn on Show Component. And now we could do our little test to see if it updates properly. Double click on the front component, change the 2 by double clicking on it to a 3, and hit the little rebuild button. And there it is. They both updated. Both the rear and the front have updated to the proper size. And we can hit the little red X to restore the original value, and hit rebuild up at the top, and proceed to save this. If you get this little message, go ahead and just hit yes. And that finishes exercise 9.